Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1448 of our daily content grind. So today we need to talk about our favorite Cyclops with only one hand. Unless you know any other Cyclopses with only one hand, it'd be weird if you knew two of them. Insert the strange that it happened twice meme here. Either way, we need to talk Shockwave because the fan vote is officially over. The results just came in, and with a resounding, I don't know how much because I didn't check the percentages, our new Shockwave toy is going to be a sea creature. Now, this is where we get a brief window to blindly speculate. This video is going to age like milk, because in just a few weeks, we are going to find out what our Shockwave is going to be. Shouldn't come as any surprise that Hasbro has already had a few of these designs picked out. You know, we were kind of, pigeonholed into picking just a few options overall. So it's likely all of these had at least some kind of design sketch going on, and I hope we see them someday, just so we know what the possibilities would have been. That would be amazing. But for now, the option we are going to get is a Shockwave as a sea creature, and that's kind of exciting because Shockwave, well, never appeared in Beast Wars, which means we have a plethora of things to choose from. And of course, there's a lot of beasts in the water that were never in Beast Wars either. We have a lot of potential here. So let's get this out of the way because the fandom just kind of jumped on this, and I feel like it's why Creature won in the first place, because there was a lot of push to make him a Spinosaurus. Now, this is not likely because it's not really a sea creature. The more we learn about Spinosaurus, the more we find out it's not actually like the Jurassic Park 3 variety, where it's just a bigger, leaner T-Rex with a big sail on its back. No, these are much closer to belly crawlers than we first imagined, they hung around rivers and lakes, and, they weren't, like, seafaring. They could swim, but they couldn't, like, dive underwater too much. They had, like, they had a system of air sacs to keep them afloat. They were floaters. They didn't, they wouldn't be able to dive too far. And I believe they're still air breathers, too. So technically, no, not really a sea creature. Closer to, like, how a crocodile lives, So, I don't think it's going to be a Spinosaurus. I don't. I don't know why the fandom attached to this so hard, other than, oh yeah, that would be cool. Or maybe they do have Jurassic Park 3 on the brain. They want something that could, like, stand as a rival to Beast Wars Megatron. Either way, I don't think it's a good fit here, personally. So let's take a look around the Transformer universe for ideas. But first, we need to take a look at a list of creatures that came up in my brain. For starters, I thought, like, what other, like, prehistoric sea creatures could we get if it's not going to be a Spinosaurus? I think an Ammonite's really cool. I mean, we had one in Beast Wars Neo with Dead End, but that was mostly shell. He was literally a shell former all the way around. Like, the most literal of shell formers. I wouldn't mind something taking on a different idea and actually, like, transforming properly. Also, like, you could make use of the eye. The fact, we'll get to this in a bit. But there are other factors involved here. But I think it's a cool creature, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be that exciting of a toy. Like, keep in mind, they are letting collectors vote on this, but ultimately, they're still going to expect kids to want to buy it too. That's not really a creature that kids are going to go, ooh, neat, I need a toy of that. It needs to be something cooler. What about something in the more typical realm? Your sharks, for instance. I think making Shockwave a, traditionally Cyclops character, a hammerhead shark with, like, one of the strangest eye structures in nature, I think that would be kind of ironic. And maybe you can make, like, the shark fin head, like, the shape of his chest, like, ultimately, I don't think that's going to apply here. For starters, we've had hammerhead sharks. You know, that's what Cyber Shark was. You know, he's an OG beast design. Now there's a potential to do that so that they can like backdoor a Cyber Shark toy as a modern figure, but it's Cyber Shark. Cyber Shark's like, ever since Skybite, I feel like any version of Cyber Shark is just the butt of the joke. Even the original Cyber Shark toy, I feel, is outclassed by its retools. Like your Hellscream and even your Sharp Edge, I think is more interesting than your just like standard Cyber Shark. Like I feel like he's just outclassed in every regard here. So like feel bad for like OG Shark Transformer. But no, that's just my personal one. I really like hammerhead sharks. I think something more in the squid realm would kind of be more expected. Like that kind of plays into Shockwave's creepier nature. If you wanted to invoke like the tubing that he's known for, that could be a thing. It's a little bit of a stretch. I mean, it would be cool. I think I kind of want this, not only because I like squids too. Squids and octopus, like they are like shockingly smart animals. They're very cool. But I don't see this particularly, especially with Quintus Prime coming out. I think this is gonna fall too close to Quintus Prime. But overall, like I wouldn't mind a squid, but again, it's a beast mode that's been taken already by it's Clawjaw in America or Scuba in Japan. So again, I don't think they would do it like that. Though looking at that original toy design, I could see how they would get a Shockwave, akin design out of it. I don't know. I think I just kind of want that toy, but larger with articulated tendrils. I think that's mostly what I want here. At this point, I'm just going after like favorite creatures, which takes me to things like the mantis shrimp. And while a mantis shrimp is incredibly cool as a creature, I don't think this one is even possible as a toy simply because I don't think they would go through the paint budget it would take to accurately represent this creature. This is a rainbow mantis shrimp. I have seen ones with like more subdued color schemes, but nah. The color is actually something that started giving me a hard time because all these creatures, one thing that came across is it still has to look like Shockwave. It's like, it's got to be purple to an extent, right? So I looked up, like, what sea creatures could actually be purple in color, and the truth is, not many. Not many. Some sea urchins can be purple, but they're more known to be black, so that doesn't work. What came up the most was starfish, and to make a Cyclops starfish, I think is going to run afoul of DC's lawyers a little bit too quickly. But to work that Cyclops angle just a little bit, one thing that came to mind was an anglerfish. Now, again, it's probably not a creature that a kid is going to look at and go, oh, that is cool. But there is something that kind of invokes not only the creepiness, the creepy aspect that Shockwave can create sometimes, but also, yeah, that lantern that could effectively stand in as his eye in beast mode. It's an out there idea, but it's possible. And it is a design. It's a sea creature that has not been in Beast Wars, so no one has actually taken his spot. So that is possible. I got to looking at potentially like sea creatures that Shockwave may have already been associated with. Granted, in most fictions, he never shows up on Earth. So to get him to be like next to a sea creature is actually exceptionally rare, but not non-existent. We would have to go to Skybound. Oh, it would be messed up. You know it would be messed up. I'm still going to just like tell you at every chance I get. If you have not read the Skybound books, you need to read the Skybound books. Issue 24 is coming out in just a few weeks. That's going to be the culmination of this first like 2 years story arc that they have been doing. And yeah, I'm incredibly excited for it. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how the whole thing wraps up. But in this scene, if you know what's happening in this scene, then you know how messed up this is. But it is Shockwave associated with a sea creature, and hey, we've never had a whale transformer before, right? The closest we have gotten to a whale transformer is like the Orca base from the Japanese line, and that's technically not a Transformer character. It's a base for minifigures. Doesn't count. It's not the same. I wouldn't mind him as an Orca, but I think any kind of Decepticon as an Orca is kind of like making it hard to beat the killer whale allegations. I think they get enough bad press. I don't think we have to make them Shockwave, right? So, okay, so the purple angle is not working. The Cyclops angle is not working. Let's go to something else Shockwave is known for and see if we cannot get something out of it. And that would be maybe the weapon hand. So maybe not a mantis shrimp. What about a pistol shrimp? Now, pistol shrimps are actually really, really cool creatures. So that huge arm of its, yeah, there's only one pincer. Like, the pincer on it is actually that little thing at the end. It's very small. However, the whole thing about a pistol shrimp is that it can close that claw so fast that it actually pushes the air out of the water and fires it like a bubble at over 60 miles an hour. And that will stun anything that it hits underwater. There's nothing underwater that's designed to take a 60-mile-per-hour impact. Yeah, it's a pretty deadly little creature. You know, between that and how hard a mantis shrimp punches, yeah, shrimp can mess you up. Don't ever insult someone by calling them a shrimp. They might have a right hook that will end you. You never know. This would be hilarious. But again, it kind of loses the cool factor a little bit. You know, because, like, you know, like, something about it doesn't work. Like getting a kid to buy a toy shrimp. Even a collector. Like, I think even a collector would go, like, that's not cool enough to be Shockwave. I don't care if it does something that's really cool in the animal kingdom. Shrimp is just not a cool animal. I'm sorry, it's not. So, this ain't gonna work either. This ain't gonna work either, unfortunately. Though I think it's a clever way of getting his weapon in there. I mean, if we want to stick to just weapon arms, there's a fiddler crab. Just, like, this would be, like, full Shock Blast mode, right? This would be, like, going back to Energon Shock Blast, where it's just, like, this entire gigantic weapon hanging off of his shoulder. It'd be funny. And I do think crabs come closer to being a cool-looking animal, especially to have a toy of. It's definitely more articulate and has more play options than, say, a shrimp, a starfish, an ammonite. I will give you that. I don't know, like, it still feels like it's missing. It still feels like it's missing the impact, right? Like, yes, this could technically work on a weird level, but it's missing something, you know? So it's like, it's not quite there. And then it kind of dawns on me. This is still Hasbro. This is still them producing a completely new toy from the ground up, meaning that there's no way they have not come up with this without having some kind of retool or repaint in mind. Now, they could produce, like, the Galactic Man Shockwave colors, all gray, and that would just make whatever sea creature basically have a blank palette to turn into whatever their real-world coloring is. So that is a potential, but that's still a pretty deep cut in order to get one repaint out. I think they'd have to try harder than that, especially because this is very experimental, right? Because, you know, Shockwave as a sea creature has never been done before. It's a really weird concept. So they might want to have some kind of backup installed, where, like, if this mold just sells terribly because it's too out there and too weird, we can retool it into this. This is popular. This is well known to the fans. We will do this. So what if we stick to the crab motif, but we make it a king crab? This is where I start getting into the speculative brain of they're going to use this mold again for something. So if it's going to be a crustacean, it's going to likely be Rampage. Now, I could kind of get behind this, you know? I could kind of get behind that idea. What works for this in particular is that his beast mode is mostly shell, right? There's not a whole lot of transforming to Rampage, meaning they can make that body anything they want to underneath all that crab armor, and it doesn't matter. It could look just like a Beast Wars take on Shockwave and still have all that crab aesthetic in the beast mode completely undamaged and, you know, looking exactly how it's supposed to look. See, the reason I doubt something like this is just because of how complicated this toy would be because of that third mode. Like, yeah, having a tank built in would actually make it feel more like modern Shockwave, but also there's like real treads involved and things Hasbro really doesn't make for Transformers anymore. That's really the reason why we haven't gotten trans metals yet. I don't think it's necessarily because they think we don't want them. They know we want them. But it's the fact that all of them have that third mode and extra engineering involved. All of them would have to be like Deluxe Plus, Voyager Plus. And I know I feel like they want to limit those as much as possible because it doesn't feel like you get your bang for your buck out of those. So to have a whole line that does it would be tricky and probably not look very good. This would have to be a leader class, for instance, just for how much it's supposed to do. Now, in the first run, yeah, you wouldn't necessarily have to have the tank mode. You could save that for being retooled later. But the more important thing here is that if they go this route, there's, you know, like, this is how you get another use out of, say, a Rampage mold, because his only other option is Shockaract, which, yeah, like, that's an option if you just do Rampage on his own, but Shockaract is, like, pre-Funpub, and pre-Funpub stuff for BotCon tends to lean on the more obscure and unknown side to the point where I genuinely don't think it would do well if they did this. This is like a Selects repaint at the best. I feel like they would need something they could do at mass retail, right? So if you do him as a crab, it would be a way of getting a Rampage out there eventually, and that would be your guarantee. But it did get me to thinking, I think there's a better option out there. And I started to really cook here. What about depth charge? So what about depth charge? So for starters, much better toy. I'm just going to leave that out there. I'm sorry to you Rampage stans. The toy is just definitively better. It just is. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. I'm just saying that. Now, a modern one would not have the whole spine and handle sticking out the back for the disc launching gimmick, because it wouldn't have the disc launching gimmick. So all that back kibble could actually be a lot cleaner than it was in the original. It'd fold down, it would collapse, or it'd be integrated into the transformation and not exist on the new one at all. You'd still have the armature for adjusting like where all of the beast mode parts go, but you would actually have a much cleaner looking depth charge out of it, if you presume to make Shockwave into a manta ray. So, for starters, like, I want you to remember, with no disc gimmick, that chest is wide open for any type of engineering you want. You know what you do? You make the chest flip to the front to have Shockwave's traditional chest, and make it part of the transformation. You know, that way you can have like a really good looking Shockwave in this mode, and it still has those familiar traits. The Manta Ray mode, it's just a cool beast mode. It's just a really cool beast mode. It's an animal that invokes like stealth bombers and like super sleek flying wings. It's really cool. It's a really cool beast mode. Something else I'm thinking about is that third mode we mentioned before, because if this toy actually did get its third mode, this is something akin to what Shockwave transforms into normally these days. This is a spacecraft. And if you do flip that mouth around and have like his actual robot mode chest as an option, you could use it in this mode to make this look a lot more vehicular. That would play up well. I think that would work. Something else that came to mind for this one is, if they did this and still kept his original transformation scheme, do you remember what happened when he flipped out his hands? The other half that flipped out were those little points. And all you have to do is retool those to look more like blasters. And now all of a sudden you can put Shockwave's gun hand in as an optional. You can have two gun hands, no gun hands, or just the one like he's always supposed to get. That works for me. That works for me. That would be a clever way of double purposing that transformation step. And again, back to the reusage thing. If they did do depth charge as a brand new toy today, there is almost nothing to repaint him into. Like, if you did Rampage as his own toy, there is Shocker Act, but that's so obscure, that would be a risk. For depth charge, if you did him on his own, the only option is the Universe 1.0 repaint, which is regarded as one of the best repaints that a Transformer toy ever got. It's a beautiful repaint, but it's also an extraordinarily extensive repaint that heavily used airbrushing that Hasbro really barely does on Transformers anymore. I genuinely don't think they would convey the same look if they did this today. You know, it would look cheaper. And like, it would be like, I don't know, like the paint would definitely be skimped on for this release if this is what they did. It's more well known. This is again a good selects release, but again, if they did Shockwave first and then got a depth charge out of it, that's a cleaner way. It's a little bit more of a guaranteed way of making sure that mold sells rather than do depth charge first and then try to get that into it. So yeah, my vote right now, my expectation is the Manta Ray. It is a very, very cool, sea creature. It is one that we could backdoor into a depth charge, and with that vehicle functionality, that gives them this nice little safety net. Even if you aren't into Beast Transformers, hey, forget about it. Here's this little Star Hopper mode that he turns into. You can just play with that and still have a vehicle Shockwave. So that's where my brain's going right now. I am probably not going to get this right. I am probably going to be very, very wrong. But I can absolutely see a path to how we get here. And honestly, it's a path I kind of like. So that's my speculation for the day. We are a few weeks before finding out what it's actually going to be, but hey, you can feel free to leave your guesses in the description, in the comments below. You are free to discuss it there, and we will all wait and see. Soon as it happens, it'll be in the next news roundup. So that's all from me today. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I will see you next time.
Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.